Hey, I'm here with the attorney here in Detroit, Michigan, Steve Fishman here. When I first met Steve Fishman here was I believe 1984, 85. My ex-girlfriend, she used to work for Inspector Gil Hill. At that time, he was running the organized crime division in the city of Detroit, and she worked for him. So I believe there's some things going on in that area, and I knew a lot of guys from the streets. So she made it to where she wanted to hire an attorney just in case, some things come up. So she hired you, Steve. Moving forward, she didn't hire you, she retained you, in so many words. Moving forward, I got into a little mix-up, and so I called Joel Osteen.
I think.
Is it Osteen or Isaacson? Joel Isaacson.
Yeah, he moved to California.
Moved to California. I called him.
He was a Mumford guy too.
Oh yeah. See, he said, "Well, I'm moving to California, but call Steve Fishman." So I called you. A long time ago, and we talked. So we went to court, blah blah, and I think you filed for a motion to suppress. Went to court, 36th District. Came in, you intimidated the judge. That's what I felt. And the prosecutor. So you was making a big scene. I was like, damn, okay. And you got the case dismissed because of the illegal procedure. So that's my experience with you. My brother also had experience with you before, but I ain't gonna talk about that. But yeah, that's how I came. Some of the cases you've been involved with in Detroit.
Well, I've been involved in all kinds of cases in Detroit. Particularly in the 70s, 80s, 90s. I started out, when I got out of law school, I went to the defender office in November of 73. I stayed there 2.5 years, went on my own, and took some time to get really known out there in the world. And then I started representing a lot of guys that were involved in the gangs. And a lot of them sold a lot of drugs, and a lot of them liked to shoot as well, and so I had a lot of drug cases and a lot of murders. And in those days, unlike now, you tried a lot more cases because there were only witnesses to testify. You don't have like now, where they have social media, where people talk about it. They have their phones where they have everything on them. I still have a flip phone. I don't participate in modern society, but we tried a lot more cases. And because the prosecutor had to rely on witnesses, people like Otis Culpepper and I, we were pretty good at cross-examining witnesses, particularly people who were what the streets would call snitches. So we had a lot of success. I had a lot of not guilties on homicides. I had a lot of motions to suppress granted on drug cases, and it just kind of went from there. And so there was the young boys. Otis basically represented them. I represented a couple, and then there were the pony down guys. That was the guys that I represented. And then came the Currys, and then came Meech, and then the Best Friends, and I don't mean the Meech we're here to talk about today, but Meech, Demetrius Holloway, one of the great people ever.
Oh wow, yeah, got killed down here in
right at the Broadway.
Wow. So you had a good lawyer-client relationship.
He was a great guy. If he'd have gone straight, he'd have been the CEO of a company. I've said that on many of these interviews before. Anyway, that's how it went.
Wow.
And as I was just saying to you guys, Detroit's really a small town, and you can get known real quickly. And if you have some success, and Otis was the same. Yeah. You have some success trying cases, and if you treat people well, and you don't steal from them by overcharging them or whatever, you can get a decent reputation fairly quickly. And because I was from the city, that helped, and basketball helped. A lot of guys knew me. I was the only white guy always, So that's pretty much how.
So you're really from Detroit, right? I mean, from Detroit area.
Roselawn and 7 Mile, right down from UD High.
Went to Mumford High School.
Mumford High School, class of '66.
Wow. You know what? The hardest trying cases here in Detroit in terms of narcotics involved. I mean, what was a tough case?
When you say hardest trying cases, you don't try all the cases. A lot of cases you make plea deals. Some cases you can get dismissed on motions. So it's hard to say what were the hardest ones to try, but my rule in general, assuming that the clients went along with it, was we only tried cases where we thought we had a reasonable chance to win. And the person who decided whether we had a reasonable chance to win was me,
Yes,
not the client.
Right.
Because if you leave it to the guys, first thing, guys in the streets, they don't know the law. Now everybody thinks they know the
Well,
law.
I mean, them
by
jobs,
the
I
way.
mean, but they do they don't know.
But in those days, people, it was a lot easier to be
Right.
the lawyer then.
Okay.
And I had a relationship with all of my guys. You know,
Okay.
I never treated anybody badly. I
Right.
never treated them like, you know, if they only went through 7th grade or
Right.
8th grade, I would
Right.
talk to them like I thought they were stupid.
Right.
I just
Right.
didn't believe in that.
Right.
And, you know, we had good relationships. And, you know,
Right.
but the guys in those days, as you know, the difference between them and a lot of these young guys now, from what I hear from the people who are dealing with them, those guys knew we're in the streets and sometimes bad things happen. And you get a case, you have to pay lawyers, you got to post bond, you might have to go do some time.
Right.
Guys understood all that.
Right.
They knew that when they got involved in the first place. If they didn't want to do those things, go work at the Dairy Queen.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so it was just a good time to practice law. It was a good time to be out in the world too,
Yeah.
although there was an awful lot of shooting going on,
Right.
and some guys wound up in the penitentiary. You know,
And like you say, a lot of guys knew what they were getting involved with. Okay, I'm gonna take the fall. Now,
absolutely.
I think what happened, guys was taking the falls, and the guys, they had with you, man. You're on your own now. Won't help with the lawyers. Won't feed the guys while they're in jail. So I think that's a lot of these turncoat deals came into play. And as you talked about the days back then, was it a point in time where a guy could say, "I'm gonna do the time for the guy"?
There were sure.
You take the fall. This guy.
But remember, the law wasn't as strict as it was then. When I started out, there wasn't even felony firearm. You know, where you get 2 years plus something else. Sentences were not that hard. Federal court, when I was there with the Pony Boys, and when I represented one of the YBI guys, it was amazing how little time guys got for really a lot of drugs and a lot of this kind of stuff too.
Right.
Now they weren't charged with the shooting and
Right.
that, but it was a different world then, and so I think I think the guys were tougher mentally. I mean, tough physically. I mean, you can go lift weights and learn how to box, but they were tougher mentally, and they were grown. I guess is the best way to say it.
And like I say, they knew what they was involved with. They were gonna take their own weight.
Most anybody, at least in those days, if you start going to the streets, you know what you're looking for. A decent percentage of the people that get in the streets wind up either in penitentiary or the cemetery. I mean, that's what happens.
Right.
If you know that when you start, then you're able to put up with it. You know, nobody wants to get killed.
Yeah, but still.
But in terms of cases, you do the time, come home, and a lot of guys come home and decide, you know, I don't want to do that anymore. I tried to encourage guys to not do that anymore because as you get older, your legs get a little tired. You know, it's like playing ball. You can't go around that pick anymore and lay it up.
And you don't want to be going back for the jail.
And you don't want to go back, you know. And some guys, a lot went back, but sometimes guys just said, I've had.
I think a lot of guys that do stretches over 10 particular tend to kind of get their heads together. What do you think about that?
I think that's absolutely true. I've got a good friend of mine, I wouldn't say who did a lot of time in the state, came home, did a little time in the feds, and then he just said, you know, I'm done. And you know, so he lives like a I've said this on every one of these podcasts. I'll say it again for you. What I tell guys all the time, back from the 70s to now, there's only 3 ways you can get a big pile of money legally at one time. You can be a professional athlete, you can be a professional entertainer, or you can hit the number. Other than that, most people get up in the morning, they go to work, they put in their 5 days or 40 hours or whatever, they get a check, and you live within your means.
And they're happy.
The problem, the hardest thing for guys who've been in the streets to adapt to is that notion. Because they're used to, here's 5,000, drive this shit to Muskegon. They're used to, here, I got me a kilo, I'll make myself 25,000 in 2 weeks. You can't do that unless, if you're if you're a great athlete nowadays.
A rapper.
Well, that's music. That's what they call music. I don't call that music. An entertainer.
I got you.
That you know, to me, an entertainer was Smokey Robinson, not those guys.
Or
But
Sammy Davis Jr., people like that.
yeah.
The guys going to prison, doing those stretches, getting themselves together, not just going there doing a weight pile, that's going there, BET with music or sports, and apply themselves, even to the law or apply themselves to reading, to enriching their mind. You know, we got a return sensitive program, enrichment program that we do at Black Mafia. We have guys transition from halfway house to the streets. We get them jobs. We do training. We got matter of fact, we just started an electric vehicle training program too as well. We got some where they can on the job training, apprenticeships. So we're really trying to scale up that aspect of community service. We got the podcast where guys want to come home, start a podcast, or guys is already out, they want to start their own podcast.
It's the most important thing to do because you know as well as I do, one thing that's the hardest thing for anybody that's got convictions, particularly if they did some time, is that the employers, they get 4 applications and 3 of them are for people who've never been in trouble, and one guy, oh, he had a conviction, fuck it, I'm not even going to interview him. That's the best thing that you can do to get people to be able to stop from going back.
Yeah.
They got to have something to do that's legal. And in order to do that, they're going to need the training, and they're going to need the outreach, and then they're going to need businesses who are willing to take a chance. And I commend that. I think it's absolutely the best thing you can do.
And the thing, what I can understand is that I'm kind of on the fence with a lot of the rappers. They've been in the streets. I mean, they don't talk about the things they do in terms of their community giving back to the communities. In particular, a lot of them sold drugs, made it out that market, and then went to the entertainment market. So it's time for them, even the ball players. I mean, come from broken homes. I mean, give back. You know, if you don't help with 3 or 4 people, and just let it be known that this is what you're doing, because that would spread. It would catch fire. You know, okay, if 50 Cent got a program for return citizens, or 50 Cent got a program for the youth basketball program, like Snoop is doing like that with the football thing. Mm-hmm. Just spread it. So, that's great. Let me do this too. Now that'd be competitive. Well, how many kids you saved this year? How many kids you have this year?
Exactly.
Well, I'm 50. I'm 100 next year. Let that be the competitive.
Yep. I think a lot of the ball players do stuff. Yeah. You know, they're making so much money, and a lot of them really, I think, are out there trying to help the youth, particularly the black athletes. You know, because you got these kids in the streets, and you want to give them an alternative.
Absolutely.
That's what it boils down to.
Absolutely. Like Matt Stafford, him and his wife. I mean, even though they're not here in Detroit, they still got a program to help kids in the area. But back to the question about that I really want to get into as well is the charging system. I mean, the federal procedure, like how defendants is charged, because this thing now going around on social media with this Demetrius Flenory thing, Big Meech, about the snitching idea. I think 50 Cent posted something. They said something been around, the talk been around for a while. 50 Cent posted something on social media with a picture of a rat and a picture of Meech. I mean, it was pretty gruesome. I mean, and it went viral. So all these YouTubers, they talking about trying to break the Frank hearing down, trying to break down the sentencing transcript, and trying to identify that this guy actually snitched on another guy from St. Louis he was doing business with. And then the strange part about it, it's a female, and she was last name Collins, and she was working for the DEA, setting up guys, and lo and behold, Demetrius gave her his life rights, signed him a power of attorney in that aspect while he was in prison. So, I mean, is that for her to be working for the government DEA? Is that a legal document that a guy can sign over his rights to federal informant? Whether or not, I don't know.
I don't know anything about any of that. I never heard of this woman, whoever she is. I've never met Demetrius Flenory in my life, never had a conversation with him. I know about the case, obviously, because I knew Terry really well, and I represented him at the beginning of the case. With respect to people talking, I mean, people have been talking from time immemorial. Everybody's always got an opinion, and nowadays, because of all this stuff with social media, everybody's got something to say.
Everybody got a platform. Everybody got a platform.
The only way.
Well, back to you did represent Southwest T.
I represented Terry Flenory. I met him before he was charged, and somebody introduced me to him, and we got to be friendly.
Oh, wow.
And he wanted, he didn't have a case. Somebody just thought it was a good idea for him to meet me, and we sat in the car actually, and shot the shit for 20 minutes, and then we became friendly. And then, of course, the indictment came, and when the indictment came, T had never had a case before in his life. He had never spent an evening even in jail. When the indictment came, both of them were on the indictment, even though Demetrius was in Atlanta, and there was no bond. In federal court, you either have a bond or you have no bond. It's not like in state court, 10,000, 10% or anything like that. And as time went on, we weren't seeing eye to eye on the case, so I told T I was gonna get off the case because I had some ideas of what he should do.
Okay.
And he was listening to some people inside maybe or
Oh, wow.
whatever. So I got off the case. The long and the short of it was, they both eventually pled guilty, and they were sentenced to 360 months each, which is 30 years by my Mumford High School arithmetic. And then, and I didn't participate in that. I was done with the case by then. I certainly think we could have done better
Oh, wow.
if I'd have stayed on the case.
Yeah. Wow. Better than 360 months.
360 months is a lot. Well, because you got to remember, because of the BMF thing. See, I never even heard about that.
Yeah.
Terry he never talked like that.
Oh, wow.
He was just another guy I knew that was involved, obviously, in something, because that's why he wanted to meet me. But he wasn't out boasting and putting billboards up and all that kind of crap. So when it came out, I was kind of learning the same as everybody else was.
So he didn't really discuss the Black Mafia Family.
I never heard
concept.
I never heard the phrase Black Mafia Family
Wow.
ever. It wasn't like Pony Down
Yeah.
or YBI.
Yeah.
I
Best
never heard
friends.
that
Yeah.
phrase.
Yeah.
He was just Terry Flenory.
Right,
He was just
right.
a guy from Southwest. The one part of the city I never was around was Southwest Detroit. And I was fascinated just by where the streets were,
Oh, wow.
to tell you the truth. So, and he was a regular guy. I mean, he's a nice guy. He's just a regular guy. And whether he was involved, I assumed he was involved in something, because why else would he want to
Okay.
meet me? But there was no BMF and all this kind of crap.
Right.
So he gets the time. And, I read it in the newspaper or somebody told me about it. And then this was back in the mid-2000s, maybe, something like that, I think, when it happened.
Yeah.
And
2005.
then he contacted me. I don't remember, he did or somebody on his behalf. And it was in 2017. What happened was, and this is important for your audience to understand, this had nothing to do with anybody talking or snitching or doing anything at all other than doing their time.
Right.
The law changed, and they had a new section of the law that changed the way the guidelines were computed.
Who changed this law here?
The government changed
Okay,
it. This had nothing to do with anybody
Okay.
in the streets or
Right.
anybody talking.
Right.
The law changed, and Terry contacted me. I can't remember if he himself or somebody
Right.
contacted me, and he didn't have 10 cents. It wasn't like he came and said, "Oh, I've got 30,000 for
Right,
you if
right,
you can
right.
do this."
Right.
But I always liked the guy. He was
Absolutely.
just a good guy.
Wow.
Can I help him? I said, I think I can help you.
Oh, wow.
So I looked it up, and looking up, he got 360 months because of the way the sentencing guidelines were before the law changed. And when the law changed, the guidelines would have been reduced to 292 months. That's a 68-month reduction because of the change in the law. I contacted the prosecutor on the case, and I told her that Terry had contacted me, and I think the law is pretty clear, and she agreed. And that was on like the third day, and we submitted something to Judge Cohn, who was still the judge back in those days, and he signed the sentencing reduction, and it's in the file.
Right.
If anybody, all these people think they can go look at federal files, you can see the order back in 2017 reducing T's sentence
Right.
from 360 to 292. So he got 68 months over almost 6 years
Wow.
off his back.
Wow.
And then when the pandemic came, he contacted me. I think he contacted me to say they had let him out because his health was bad.
And you do this all as a courtesy because you like the guy.
I've never charged him 50 cents for anything since then.
Yeah.
So at the same time, his brother, I think, was hoping to get the same
Okay.
reduction.
Now, did Demetrius, did he take advantage of the new change in the law?
I'm going to tell you about it, but it didn't. Not in 2017.
Okay.
Somebody contacted me who said they were with him, and would I be willing to do it for him? And I said, well, I don't really know him,
Right.
and I knew what I was doing, and I knew who I was dealing with.
With
The
T.
only thing I knew about Meech was, of course, all that BMF crap
Yeah,
down
yeah.
south, which really brought the feds all over everybody.
Wow.
And I kind of was, well, I don't know him. It'd be kind of odd, and I didn't want to take any money from him.
Absolutely.
So I said no. And then for some reason, instead of getting somebody else, I went and looked it up, knowing I was going to be talking with you. I don't think he got his sentence reduced for like another 3 or 4 or 5 years, even though the law was in place in 2017. But in any event, that's something that people should know because of all this talk back and
Yeah.
forth. That is he a snitch? He's not any goddamn snitch.
Wow.
The law changed, and his sentence went from 360 to 292 as
Wow.
well. And then, from what I understand, he was sent to the halfway house, which people have to understand. Again, for those of you who are listening to this, when you get a federal sentence, unlike a state court sentence in Michigan, if you get a state court sentence, there's no good time, no halfway house, no nothing. If you get 2 years, you do 2 years, 24 months to the day, okay? That's not the feds. People need to understand that. In the feds, you get 54 days a year, good time, which is pretty much 2 months, okay? You can also go to the halfway house within 6 months of whatever your release date is. So when you get a long sentence like he had, 360 months, you're talking about 30 years times 2 months a year of good time. That's 5 years, that's 60 months off of it to begin with.
Right.
So now it's 292, and now it's 5 years off of that, now it's 232, and he did all that time.
And that's what everybody's saying, that there's a 5-year window that hasn't been served. That's the whole chatter. Like
A 5-year window? What do you mean window?
When I said window, I mean like he has 5 more years to do that he's not doing.
He first thing, are they all geniuses? They understand the federal system?
That's why I can't review.
Is before they start talking, maybe they should talk to somebody who knows something about the federal criminal justice system, so they don't say stupid things on YouTube or wherever it is that these young kids are at. Wow. But they're not such young kids, obviously, if they're talking about him. The long and the short of it is, everybody, there's nowadays, a lot of guys are coming home earlier, having nothing to do with snitching or telling on anybody, just because the system has now been set up that they're trying to get people through the system quicker. So if he got out, I don't think he got any 60 months less, because 292 is a traitor, you mean?
Yeah, traitor. So it's like, look, it's like he betrayed the people. Like, damn, this man went did his time.
The guy did his time. You showed me what you sent me. I saw him talking. What he said. What he said is the truth. Now, whether you like him or you don't like him, that's a different issue.
We talking about the
law. From what I know of the case, okay, and I know a decent amount of the case, and from reviewing the stuff, he didn't get 1 day less than anybody else got. He didn't tell on anybody. Because you got to remember, with guys like that, and it was the same with T and the same with a lot of other guys I've represented that were at a certain level out in the street trade, okay? It's not just they try to get you to tell while your case is pending. They'll come to you after you'll be in there for 5 years and say, hey man, the feds will come. We're investigating Joe Blow, and we hear you know all about him. And I guarantee you that happened with Demetrius Flenory, and I guarantee you he told them all to go screw themselves. Because if he didn't, he'd have been home 10 years earlier.
I think someone made a point like that, man, a guy like that, he wouldn't have to go to jail, would he, if he was informant?
Well, I don't know about all that.
I mean, maybe 5 years.
I mean, if you cooperate, everything is different. First thing, if he really had been cooperating, either of them, they wouldn't have been held in custody most of the time. You almost always are going to be out, and then you can turn yourself in when it's time to do your time. But it just never happened in this case. And again, I don't know 50 Cent from Adam's House Kid. I mean, I know that there's a name of a guy, 50 Cent. I don't know what his real name is. I don't know, is he from Detroit? I don't know anything about him. But if they want to have their little feuds because this guy's friendly with them, fine. But let's at least tell the truth. Let's not try to label the guy as something that he's not. And again, I want everybody should know, I never met Demetrius Flenory. I've never talked to him on the phone. I'm just telling you the facts and the law. But it's the facts and the law.
And then, like you say, the thing about it, he was a guy that done 20 years. I think he filed a motion, like for compassion for the health issue, in 2021 or 22.
No, it probably was in 20. What happened was, again, so everybody can know what really happened, March of 2020 is when the pandemic started, okay? The compassionate release notion came about, from the First Step Act right around in then, okay? And everybody, not gonna say everybody, a lot of people.
I know a friend of mine, he got the release.
A lot of people got it. I got compassionate release for people. And they fit the criteria. This is what people have to understand. If you fit the criteria, if you fit the standards for compassionate release, there were judges who were granting them. There were judges who weren't granting them too. Sometimes some judges, just like with everything else about court, some are tougher than others. But filing for compassionate release, again, if he really was a snitch, he would have been getting a 5K or a Rule 35 motion from the government, for God's sake. He wouldn't have to file for compassionate
And he
release.
he probably wouldn't have got denied of the motion.
Well, he certainly, but he would have never had to file it. They would have, when somebody cooperates, the government comes to the court and they file a motion
On
and
their
they
behalf.
ask the judge to reduce the guy's sentence or to give him less time if he hasn't yet been sentenced. None of that is present in this case.
Wow.
There's no motions from the government. They oppose every single thing he did. Every single motion he filed, they opposed.
And like you said, you have no connection with Meech at all. You have
None. I'm just, look, I looked at, when you called me,
Yeah.
knowing we were going to do this,
Yeah.
I went and looked at everything just to make sure.
Right.
I mean, I thought I knew what I knew, but now I know I
You
knew
never put
what
yourself
I knew.
on front like that.
I mean, it's just too bad.
Yeah.
But this is the society we live in.
Yeah.
Now. Everybody, yak. Everybody can talk, and talk means nothing. What does talk mean?
But Steve, I mean, what's going on out there? It's a shame because, like I said, back in the day when you represented a guy, if a guy's known for a snitch, that's his life. His life is in danger.
It'd be dangerous.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
That's
And this is wrong too. It could be dangerous still
Yeah,
today,
yeah.
but it's wrong.
Yeah.
My guess is the reason they're doing it is because it's some kind of a beef between other people.
Rick Ross and
Whoever
50
he
Cent.
is, yeah.
Because when the woman conflict, you don't know her. She was an informant.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, Big Meech signed his life rights over for the movie deal with 50 Cent and the Stars show about BMF organization.
When I was seeing the advertising for on the John C. Lodge Expressway.
So some crazy thing happened when Meech came home. He hooked up with the guy Rick Ross. Rick Ross made the song.
What is he? He's a rapper?
Oh, he's a big time rapper. Yeah.
Okay, I can remember. I'm telling you, the last movie I saw was Purple Rain.
Prince,
Okay,
that was your man.
so
Matter of fact, when I was meeting you, was listening to Prince then.
So I don't know anything about any of these rappers
Yeah.
unless they can sing My Girl and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I don't have anything to
Yeah,
do
it
with
was it's something simple with 50 Cent and this other guy. When Meech came home, he's hooked up with this guy here, I guess, and 50 Cent, got the rights to his movie and his son. It's just a sad situation with the son.
All I'm trying to do is tell the truth about what the file looks like to me and what I believe happened
That's right.
based on the evidence and the facts and the law.
Right.
And it's really not a very difficult
Right.
conclusion to reach
Wow.
if you know what you're talking about and if you bother to really look at the
Take a
stuff.
deep dive.
And let me tell you something else. You told me on the phone and you said it again, I think before we started.
Yeah.
Guys are looking at the Frank Syrian, guys are looking at the... What guys? The same guys that sit in the jail and try to tell other people how they should handle their own case who have not, forget law school.
Yeah.
They ain't got past 10th grade.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they're geniuses of the law.
Well, then you got the guys with these YouTubers. They call themselves, I guess, qualified journalists without no journalism experience. Got their own YouTube channels and Facebook followers and.
But journalism is one thing, but trying to pretend you're a lawyer and that you know the law and you're reading a Frank's hearing and you think you know what you're reading and you're pointing your finger, see, that shows such and such. What they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. That's what they don't know.
Wow. Well, Steve, it was a pleasure, man.